Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
It would be nice if I kept forgetting to bring myself up on screen. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, guys, I had to share with you one more installment in Tom DeVox's chronicle of his own personal involvement in the events that led up to the disappearance of Shelly Miscavige. This is amazing stuff that if we were talking about any other group or any other individual would result in David Miscavige being put behind bars. And the only reason the events I'm going to share with you in this video did not or would not result in him being put behind bars is because Scientologists are so brainwashed that the people David Miscavige did this to would fill out affidavits saying that this is all a lie and it never happened and David Miscavige is great and he's a benevolent ecclesiastical leader and he saved their lives and they owe everything to him and he's the best assist and the most assist wonderful. And that is one of the big hurdles that law enforcement has in prosecuting David Miscavige. Everybody will lie for him under oath. Okay, so I'm gonna do this quickly because, as you guys know, it's Friday evening. Me and the Clearwater crew are going to be protesting downtown Clearwater, across the street from the Fort Harrison Hotel. Anybody local, feel free to come and join us. Drive by, say hi, honk your horn, or meet us at Prelude Sports Bar afterwards for a drink or two. Okay, so check this out, guys. This is from one of the Substack articles in Tom DeVox's Substack. You can see a Substack account here. You can go subscribe to that if you would like to. Let's take a look at this. Where is Shelly? Part 2A. Okay, now he says that, well, here's what he says. Let me put my face up here for a moment. This is part 2 of the Where is Shelly series, but it will unfold differently. Instead of one long narrative, I'm breaking this chapter into several standalone stories, each a firsthand account of something I witnessed in the final years before Shelly vanished and before I left. Moments that reveal what was really happening inside Scientology's international management base, which is in Gilman Hot Springs, California, by the way. If you guys go on a map, Google Maps, Apple Maps, type in Gilman Hot Springs, California, what you are looking at is Scientology's international management base. What used to be Scientology's international management base. Okay, so check it out. We're going to fast forward here a little bit. He goes, this was not the first time I saw David Miscavige hit somebody, but it was the first time I thought that he might kill them. This is incredible stuff, you guys. Okay, he goes, I followed David Miscavige, Shelly Miscavige, and Lou. Lou is short for Larice. Larice is a woman, and it is David Miscavige's communicator, which is sort of another version of an assistant in Scientology Sea Org language. Okay, I followed David Miscavige, Shelly, and Lou around the international base and spent seamlessly, okay, it's misspelled, endless hours in the Int conference room, where David Miscavige was more intense than usual. Mark Yeager and Guillaume Leserve, the usual targets, were singled out with particular cruelty. I'm not going to read those words, but that's what David Miscavige would call them. Okay, actually, let me fast forward. Oh, okay. All right. I lost my space. Here we go. Jesus. Oh my God. Okay. Dave whispered to Lou, and Lou walked over to tell me to go into town to get scotch. Getting more than a single bottle of scotch at a time was like admitting that there was a problem. So instead, I went into town daily. An unhinged beating. When I got back from Hemet, so Hemet is what going into town means because Gilman Hot Springs is north of Hemet. When I got back from Hemet, I went into the officer's lounge, which is in the lower villa. No one was there, though there were signs someone had just been. Then I heard Shelly outside. It sounded like she was screaming at the top of her lungs. No, Dave, please stop. Stop, please stop, Dave, please. I hurried out of the lounge, and now I could hear Dave screaming too. And I could hear the dull thuds, slaps, groans. I came around the corner, and the air was electric, creepy, wrong, and it smelled like someone had shit themselves. It was outside in the dark in a small grassy spot. David Miscavige looked deranged. His eyes were red. He was sweating profusely. His usually perfect hair was a mess. He seemed to be having an asthma attack. By the way, David Miscavige has asthma. He seemed to be having an asthma attack, gasping for breath. All the while he was hitting, closed fist, punching Mark Yeager and Guillaume Leserve like nothing I had ever seen before. Let me briefly comment for anyone who is not already familiar. At this time, Mark Yeager and Guillaume Leserve were two of the most famous, well-known, accomplished, tenured, senior Scientology executives in the world. It would be like Bill Gates beating up Steve Ballmer in the corporate headquarters. It would be like Steve Jobs beating the shit out of Tim Cook right there in the executive conference room. It's truly unbelievable. It would be almost impossible for you to convince a Scientologist that these stories are true. Either a Scientologist would say to you, these are just stories being made up by SPs to take down David Miscavige because David Miscavige saved Scientology and SPs can't stand Scientology, so they want to take down Scientology, so they're trying to take down the only man capable of saving Scientology. Or they would say, David Miscavige is so sane and such an OT and so ethical that if he did this to them, that means they must have deserved it. So these are not just two Sea Org members. These are two famous. Every Scientologist in the world at this time knew who these executives were. Okay. He continues on. Both Guillaume Leserve and Mark Yeager were bleeding from the mouth. Guillaume was bleeding from an ear. They looked like they knew they were going to die. Shelley was white as a ghost and visibly shaken, tears running down her face. Shelley pleaded with David Miscavige to stop over and over. As I approached, I saw another blow. Mark Yeager went down. Miscavige kicked him while he was down hard with dress shoes in the ribs and in the head. That is deadly force. Then Guillaume Leserve down and kicked. David Miscavige was foaming at the mouth. Oh, geez, I guess I'm not sure if he means Dave or Mark or Guillaume Leserve at this point. I think he means Dave. David Miscavige was foaming at the mouth. Mark Yeager got up, hunched, and David Miscavige hit him again. Dave was spewing vulgarities, spit flying, practically foaming at the mouth as he walked away past me. I flinched like I often did when he came close. He didn't even look at me, but a vile odor from his body hit me as he stormed off around the corner. I assumed to his bedroom. It makes me wonder if that vile odor was a callback to the previous reference he made to smelling like someone had shit themselves, or if it was just body odor. But could you imagine David Miscavige being so worked up at beating up these guys that he literally shit his own pants? Okay. Tom says, this was not like any other beating. This was different. It was uncontrolled, unhinged. Dave had snapped. It was as if he were possessed. Mark Yeager was putting his thumb in his mouth, trying to push a tooth back into place that had apparently been knocked in. Guillaume Leserve rubbed his ear, saw the blood on his hands, and was clearly concerned. Neither said a word. They were both stunned and very hurt. Guys, I mean, I was going to say, I don't know if Mark Yeager and Guillaume Leserve at the time of this incident would have been senior citizens. What is the cutoff for being a senior citizen? Is it 65 or older? I don't. So this would have been maybe 20 years ago. They were not young men, is all I will say. Yeah. Okay. Tom goes, so they were stunned and they were very hurt. Enough that in any other circumstance, an ambulance would have been warranted. Maybe the police too. Shelley did not dare apologize to Mark or Guillaume. She knew better, but she all but did. She called for help and made sure they were taken care of. We got them towels, ice, and had someone come to tend to them. She also begged them, please just go get your stuff and move back in now or as soon as you can before Dave goes to bed, because he'll check that you did. She quickly explained while we reluctantly headed back towards the officers' lounge. Apparently, Mark and Guillaume had been living in the middle villa in a room together. They decided they didn't deserve to be in the villas, which were considered executive housing. Dave lived in one of the lower villas. They hadn't told him they were moving, and when Dave went to their dorm to harass them some more, he found they were gone. They had moved to the old Gilman house where the SPs belonged. Okay, a couple comments. The old Gilman house, the way it's been explained, I was never at the Int Base. I never saw the old Gilman house. This is all coming from other people's explanations. Was a house. My understanding is that it's actually where the cadets were. No, scratch that. I could be wrong about that. It was basically a piece of shit rundown house where people who were in trouble were sent to sleep and be and stay so that they wouldn't be associating with the normal Sea Org members who were in good standing and not in trouble. So one of the crazy things to me about this story is that Mark and Guillaume were so brainwashed and so conditioned to think that they were bad that they basically punished themselves by moving themselves out of their own dorm because they didn't deserve to be there. And Miscavige was so furious that they did anything without prior approval that he beat the shit out of them for it. You know, you think that he might go to them and be like, oh, I'm so glad that you guys know what pieces of shit you are and you finally took some initiative. By the way, one of the famous insults that, because remember, these are two of the highest level executives in Scientology. One of the famous insults I've heard David say to them is the only expansion either of you, because, you know, executives are supposed to create expansion in Scientology. The only expansion either of you have ever created is in each other's assholes. He would just constantly troll these guys for being gay. They're not gay, but David is a homophobe, so he would constantly troll them for being gay. So you would think that he would finally acknowledge them for showing some initiative as an executive since they'd never accomplished any expansion other than each other's assholes. But you finally showed some initiative and moved yourself to the old Gilman house. But no, even that wasn't even good enough. He had to beat the shit out of them for having the audacity of punishing themselves without his approval. Like, it really doesn't get much more sick and sadistic than David Miscavige. Okay, Tom continues on. That is what triggered Dave. He had not approved the move. To him, it was treason, an act of defiance, an attempt to get away from him and from responsibility. It set him off. Okay, he says, the aftermath of this. I had not planned to go into the officer's lounge again after that, but Shelly, crying and shaking, said, you have to come in too. Don't leave, just stay calm. He has really lost it. I don't know what to do. Inside, Dave was hunched over his reports, a cloth wrapped around his bleeding knuckles. He didn't say much at first. I hesitated to sit. Shelly handed me a full glass of scotch. Guys, I know in the real world, drinking is not a big deal. Drinking at work is kind of a big deal. In Scientology, the idea of Sea Org members casually drinking liquor is unheard of. Most Sea Org members taste alcohol once a year. That is at the beer and cheese party, which is held sometime between Christmas and New Year's. Maybe they would taste alcohol on Sea Org Day. Maybe. But probably not, because you still have to be on post the next day and you're supposed to go on study every day when you're on post. Like, the fact that David Miscavige just casually drinks liquor would be shocking to Sea Org members and Scientologists. Okay, so Shelly handed me a full glass of scotch. David snapped, sit the fuck down. He asked if I could believe that they had moved out. I stupidly replied, I didn't even realize they lived in the villas. Uncomfortable silence. I knew he wanted me to say something to make him feel like they deserved it. 5 minutes later, he pointed at the door for me to leave. Shelly followed me out and whispered, I don't know what to do. I'm really scared he's going too far. I looked at her blank. That's how I felt, blank. We'll talk tomorrow. As I walked through the parking lot, I saw Mark and Guillaume hurriedly carrying a mattress back towards their villa. Ghost white, shaky, desperate. They looked like two prisoners returning to their cell, no longer recognizable as the men they had once been. Okay, let me see what the next thing is. Okay, the next thing is more of his personal narrative, but the purpose of this video And the title of this video is David Miscavige has mental breakdown, assaults two executives. So that's the anecdote we're going to stick with here, because the purpose of the video isn't to do his whole blog post. But like, this was the level of madness, paranoia, and violence that David Miscavige had descended into before he removed Shelly from her post. And you can see from this anecdote and from others in the other blog posts that Shelly was acknowledging to other executives around her that David Miscavige had lost it. She did not know what to do about it. And I'm still looking forward to the rest of Tom's Substack posts explaining what happened next. Now, this particular blog post that I'm sharing with you right now, this is actually from about 5 or 6 weeks ago. There's many, many other blog posts there, but the story about Shelly has not yet advanced further than the video I shared with you a few hours ago. So anyway, once again, I will share with you this. This is his Substack. If you want to subscribe to it, get email alerts for when he puts up new articles. He's actually put up a few today, and they're freaking bangers. And if I wasn't running out the door to pick up some Costco pizzas and get ready for the protest, I'd probably do a video or two about his blog posts this morning. Truly incredible stuff, guys. David Miscavige is in the chat. He says, I clearly need a psychiatric evaluation, and you would be correct. All right, guys, I'll see you tonight at the protest. Ta-ta for now.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe